Security operatives, including the police and army, successfully repelled an attack on Damaturu, the Yobe state capital, this evening. The State Commissioner of Police, Yahaya Abubakar, who confirmed the incident, told our correspondent that it took a combined effort of policemen and soldiers backed by 2 fire jets from the Nigerian Air Force to repel the insurgents who came into the city. Earlier in the evening, the residents were thrown into panic with sounds of gunshots in the air. Yobe, in northeast Nigeria, is one of the states that has suffered from attacks and has seen the deployment of special forces to tackle the insurgency. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, says one of the solutions to the country's infrastructure deficit is the private sector collaborations from diaspora via tax credits for investment. While representing the president at Day 2 of the Nigeria Diaspora Investment Summit, the Vice President says so far, only institutional investors have taken advantage of these tax credits and the infrastructure fund.
No, you are a Nigerian.
Our infrastructure spend is by far the largest in Nigeria's history. Yet the infrastructure deficits remain quite significant. We have major funding gaps, as I'm sure those of you who are following the debates on the budget have seen. Part of the solution is private sector collaboration by way of tax credits for investments in public infrastructure. And we'll put that out there, that we're prepared to partner with private sector individuals who want to put in their resources for tax credit. Of course, it involves a fair amount of money. We've had a few takers, but I'm sure that there are those in the diaspora that can mobilize the kind of resources that can be invested in this kind of public-private sector partnerships for infrastructure and derive significant benefit from it, and if possible, tax credits. The other is the infrastructure fund. The fund at the moment has only received institutional investors, but there is, in my view, room for investment from diaspora funds as well. Such investments, especially when managed with the known expertise of our Nigerian Sovereign Wealth Fund, can be both safe and profitable. So we have an infrastructure fund. It's managed by the NSIA, the Sovereign Wealth Fund. But as I've said, so far, all we've seen are investments from institutional investors. We think that diasporans can benefit from this significantly, and we as a nation can benefit from it.
And in London, another investment summit on Nigeria was hosted today by the Lord Mayor of the city. Nigerian tech firms, alongside other businesses, were given an opportunity to pitch their vision to potential investors. The Minister of Trade and Investment, Mr. Niyi Adebayo, was one of the keynote speakers, and he explains why investors should be looking in the direction of Nigeria at this time.
There seems to be a big desire on the part of the British government to see that they rebuild the relationship, especially the commercial relationship that existed between Nigeria and the UK in the past. So that is the reason why I actually made the effort to fly in to come in for this particular event. Quite a few countries are realizing the potential of Africa. And when you talk about Africa, you can't but talk about Nigeria. Nigeria holds a lot of potential, especially with regard to the population. We have a large educated population. It's a large market. And so I think people are slowly waking up to the realization that they have to engage and get involved. The mandate of my ministry is to encourage industrialization in the country, to encourage people to open more industries, to encourage those who already have industries to expand those industries. The idea is that the more industries you have, the more people you get employed. The more people you get employed, that is where the trickle-down comes.
Back in the country, the House of Representatives is to investigate the alleged non-repayment of $7 billion from the country's foreign reserves disbursed to 14 global asset managers and 14 banks by the Central Bank of Nigeria since 2006. The House resolved to investigate the matter after a motion sponsored by Representative Abubakar Ahmad. According to the motion, the CBN gave each asset manager and its Nigerian bank counterpart $500 million from the nation's foreign reserves to manage. The lawmakers are worried that after 13 years, the $7 billion foreign reserves has not yet been repaid to the CBN.
The House notes that sometimes in 2006, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, disbursed the sum of $7 billion of Nigeria's $38.07 billion USD foreign reserve to 14 global asset managers and 14 Nigerian banks. They call them local partners. $500 million were given to each of these 14 pairs, aware that the assets and liabilities of these 6 mature acquired banks have been legally acquired as part of the legacies of the defunct banks. We are worried that after 13 years, Nigeria's had earned $7 billion from our foreign reserves has not been repaid to the CBN, and there is no action put in place to ensure repayment of the funds.
Staying in the nation's capital, the federal government is insisting that its anti-corruption crusade is still on course, as money in excess of 200 billion naira has been recovered as final forfeitures and over 800 convictions secured in the last 1 year. Both the Minister of Information and the acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, told an anti-corruption town hall meeting that government's efforts are yielding results, but there's still more work to be done.
The Minister of Information and Culture is leading the discussions about the federal government's anti-corruption crusade in this town hall meeting in Abuja.
Ambassadors and High Commissioner.
The anti-corruption crusade is one mantra that the Buhari administration continues to pride itself in. But how has the government performed?
In 2015, we had 103 convictions. 2016 is 189. From January this year to October this year, the Commission recorded 890 convictions.
We have recovered in excess of 200 billion. In final forfeiture. There are recoveries that are still interim, which we cannot deal with, but they have been effectively protected. But the monies that we have earned for the federal government in this process is in excess of 200 billion.
Unraveling financial corruption in public offices is no doubt a huge task. It's even more challenging when government is reluctant in giving needed information to anti-graft agencies.
In terms of government getting its act together, law enforcement agencies must automatically have access to certain information. You don't need to wait for it. Magu said sometimes the lack of cooperation on the part of government agencies. You ask for information and you're waiting 3 or 4 weeks to get it. Sometimes in that intervening period, the asset you want to preserve or stop, it has moved.
Notwithstanding, the Minister of Information and Culture insists that the federal government's anti-corruption crusade is still on course.
One may say that the war against corruption is still a war in progress, but it's also fair to say that corruption has now been driven under the table and that the corrupt ones can no longer flaunt the proceeds of their corruption the way they used to do before.
Corruption in public offices is a major problem that successive governments have tried to eliminate without much success. The consensus at this meeting, however, is that anti-graft agencies need stronger collaboration with the citizens in order to win the fight.
To energy matters now, the Lagos State government and the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, will be collaborating with the Ijeguegba tank farm to address the infrastructure challenges around that axis. This partnership follows the visit of the NNPC Group Managing Director, Mr. Mele Kyari, to the tank farm location and a meeting with the Lagos State government. Our correspondent, Olu Phillips, was there and has this report.
Twice in 1 week, the Group Managing Director NNPC is visiting Lagos over sector-driven schedules. Lagos warehouses over 60% of the country's petroleum product concerns Ijebu-Egba in the satellite area of the state also holds 25% of those, especially tank farms. So it's not surprising the GMD and his team are visiting here.
Namely PMS, AGO and ATK.
It's not a mere courtesy visit. This axis has been challenged with access road, making it difficult for trucks to navigate easily. That, however, is being undertaken by the operators in terms of reconstruction.
We're here because respite has come. The depot owners, in particular, were able to pull their resources together to fix this road through the Nigerian Army Corps of Engineers, and they are doing an excellent job of it. And the result will be that there will be free movement of trucks out of this location to our locations all over the country. And we're practically here to tell them thank you and to tell them that these efforts will not go unnoticed. And of course, in a larger context, the whole country is grateful to these depot owners and the Nigerian Army Corps of Engineers. And of course, we are also collaborating.
But there's just so much they can handle. The job will require some level of government support, and so the entourage moves to Lagos House for courtesies and more.
Everything that is required, to ensure that everything goes well, we have taken up those responsibilities, and you can begin to see the immediate impact in the next 48 hours to 72 hours.
Those assurances, plus the ongoing repairs at the corridor, forms the crust for further assurances.
We have no fear whatsoever of any supply disruption or distribution disruption, and Nigerians will go to Christmas peacefully.
On the average, we're doing between 18 to 20 million liters. The collaboration in terms of what we need, in terms of support, we're already getting it from NNPC, the state government, and every stakeholder. And the way things are going, for the end of the year, there will strictly be full, robust, and 24 hours operations out of here.
There are two approaches. First, we have to create a palliative to allow continuous flow, and then we have to fix in a permanent solution.
The U-Child is in sight. The wait to witness a hitch-free supply and purchase of petroleum products or otherwise shouldn't be a long one. Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.